My name is Elara Wynter, and almost everything I have in my life, I earned on my own. I've always worked hard, quietly, consistently, never asking for help, never expecting anyone to save me. I built my career with long nights, discipline, and a calm determination most people underestimate. Financially, I'm stable. Emotionally, I've learned to stand alone. But none of that ever mattered in my house. At home, I wasn't seen as the responsible one or the successful one. I was simply invisible. My family treated me like background noise, useful only when they needed something. They remembered me when bills were due, when they needed rides, when they needed money. Otherwise, I barely existed to them. My brother was the favorite, the treasure, the shining star they showed off to the world. Every achievement of his was celebrated. Every mistake of his was forgiven. And me? I wasn't invited to birthdays, dinners, celebrations, not even out of courtesy. I learned early on that in my own family, I wasn't part of the circle. I was standing outside it, watching everyone else belong. In my family, everything has always revolved around my brother. They praise him nonstop, even for the smallest things, acting as if every step he takes is some genius accomplishment. They show off his trophies, his awards, his job, his hobbies, anything that makes them look good through him. Meanwhile, my own achievements barely earn a glance. They forget my birthdays so often that I've stopped checking my phone on that day. But when they need something, money, support, favors, they come straight to me, speaking as if it's my duty to help, as if respect is optional when it comes to me. Family photos are the same story. I'm always placed at the edge, half cut out, barely included. It's symbolic, really. They keep me close enough to use me, but far enough to forget I exist. Over time, I learned not to expect fairness or affection. In my own house, I wasn't the daughter. I was the outsider who lived with them. One afternoon, completely out of nowhere, a message from my family flashed across my phone. "We're having a special family dinner tonight. Come." I actually had to reread it, convinced it was either a mistake or some automated group text I wasn't meant to be included in. They never invite me to anything, dinners, celebrations, holidays, nothing. For a moment, I just stared at the screen, wondering why they suddenly wanted me there. A small part of me, the part one usually tried to silence, whispered that maybe things were finally different, maybe they were trying to include me for once. Against my better judgment, I let myself hope. I told myself not to overthink it, not to dig for hidden motives, and just see it for what it looked like, an invitation. So I got dressed, took a deep breath, and decided to go, telling myself that maybe this time, they actually wanted me around, not for what I could give them, but simply because I was family. When I walked into the restaurant, the first thing I noticed was the table completely full. Every chair was taken, every place setting arranged, every drink already poured. No space for me. Not even an attempt to pretend they had expected me. My mother looked up with a tight smile, and someone murmured, "Oh, we didn't expect you so early." I wasn't early. I was exactly on time. Still, no one stood, no one offered a seat, no one made the slightest effort to make room. So I quietly stepped back and walked to a small table near the corner, sitting alone like a guest who wandered into the wrong party. From there, it was impossible not to hear them whispering. My brother leaned in, voice low but careless. "Relax, she'll pay. She always does." Another whispered, "This bill is going to be huge. Good thing she's coming." At that moment, everything clicked. The sudden invitation, the fake kindness, the forced warmth, it wasn't about family. It wasn't about including me. They were only being nice because the dinner was expensive and they needed someone to save them from the bill. And to them, that someone was always supposed to be me. A little while later, the waiter approached their table with a stiff expression and a long white receipt in his hand. Without a word, he dropped it right in the center with a sharp slap, the sound echoing across the room. I watched from my corner as my entire family leaned in and then instantly recoiled. The number must have hit them like a punch. $3,000. Panic spread across their faces almost immediately. My father cleared his throat, my mother's hand froze halfway to her glass, and my brother stared at the total like it was written in another language. Then, as if pulled by the same string, every head turned toward me. Their expressions shifted from fear to expectation in seconds. Someone forced a smile and said, "Sweetie, you'll take care of this, right?" It didn't matter that I had been ignored the entire evening. It didn't matter that I wasn't even sitting with them. In their minds, my role had already been assigned. I wasn't the daughter, the sister, the family they claimed to care about. I was just the wallet they needed to make their problems disappear. I pushed my chair back slowly, the sound sharp enough to make the whole family turn toward me. Their faces were tight with panic, and for the first time in years, I wasn't the one who felt small. I felt steady, calm, almost powerful. The waiter had dropped the $3,000 bill in front of them like a bomb, and they all reacted the exact same way, by looking at me. The invisible daughter. The forgotten child. The one who somehow became their emergency credit card. My brother leaned back, smiling like it was obvious. My mother tilted her head, softening her voice the way she always did when she wanted something from me. "Sweetie, you'll take care of this, right?" I walked toward their table, my footsteps slow and deliberate. For a moment, they truly believed they had me again, believed I would fold, pay, and disappear like always. Instead, I placed a small amount of cash on the edge of the table. "My drink," I said quietly. "That's the only thing I ordered." Their expressions flickered, first confusion, then disbelief, and finally fear. You could have heard a pin drop. I looked at them all one last time, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel ashamed or guilty or desperate for approval. I felt done. "I wasn't part of your table," I added, my voice steady. "And I'm not part of this family anymore." My brother's jaw dropped. My mother stuttered something under her breath. My father opened his mouth like he wanted to argue but couldn't find a single word. I didn't wait for any of them to recover. I turned around, picked up my bag, and walked out of the restaurant while the entire room watched the chaos I left behind. Their whispers carried behind me as I stepped into the night. I didn't even look back at the building because I had never been inside it as a daughter, just as an afterthought. That night, I drove home with my heart pounding, not from fear, but from the strange, electrifying realization that I finally stood up for myself. When I reached the house, I didn't even turn on the lights. I went straight to my room, pulled out my suitcase, and began packing. Clothes, documents, my savings, my laptop, the pieces of myself I had protected quietly for years. I didn't pack photos, there weren't any of me to pack. I didn't pack memories, most of them never included me anyway. When I finished, I placed my house key on the kitchen counter. It looked small, unimportant, just like they had always made me feel. And then I walked out of that house for the last time. The air outside felt different, lighter, colder, real. I drove until the city lights faded behind me, until I felt distance between myself and the life that had suffocated me for so long. By morning, I signed the lease for a tiny apartment in a quieter town. No shouting. No guilt. No expectations. No, "Why didn't you pay for this?" or "Why aren't you more like your brother?" Just peace. I bought my own groceries, made my own dinner, sat on a small balcony with a cup of coffee, and listened to nothing but the wind. For the first time, the silence didn't hurt. It healed. I didn't just leave the bill on their table. I left my old life there. The ignored daughter died that night in that restaurant. The new me, free, steady, unapologetically myself, was born the moment I walked away. And I never looked back.